Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to revisit our judgments about certain time traveling consciousness ideas. This is going to be a little bit of a fun one because I always think this is a fun one to kind of delve into whenever I see it, and I see I don't really want to call it resistance, but I see the non-suspension of belief, maybe that's the way I want to put it, when these concepts come up. I've done quite a few videos about different ideas about time travel, about how different movies depict it in different ways and how we do it very easily every day on our own. But every time it comes up, I always feel like it's time to do another video about it, maybe bring a different spin on it, because every time something comes up, it is in the collective. You know, it's getting revisited. And it's also a nudge for me to come on and do another video on it. And it's a fun video to do. So, okay, time travel. The different types that I have talked about before. Now, we've gone through our Back to the Future time travel, where, you know, you actually move your body forward. And those are the way the movies depict it quite a bit, right? You move your body forward and all of a sudden the past it's a very linear time travel mode. It's a very easy way to be depicted, right? It's a very easy way for it to get, what's the word? Represented, you know, and I was just watching Outlander because I do like to watch Outlander. And they actually depict it like that on Outlander, where you go, you know, instead of them going forward, I mean, they do eventually go forward, but mostly it's about them going back in time. I've done a lot of videos on how they try to change the collectives and how it kind of shows us how we try to go back and judge different collectives. And that shows a very good model on how they try to take the sensibilities of today and try to put them on people 200 or 300 years ago, and how it just doesn't mesh, and how disconnected those timelines are in a sense of how the consciousness has changed and how different timelines eventually kind of die out, and how, you know, timelines that are left to kind of drag out on their own eventually do drag out to their conclusion. It's not the way a lot of people would have rather seen it go. You know, it's usually bloodier and a lot more intense when you look back through history about different things and how long things had portrayed, how they saw the timeline collapsing, but they still let it go, let it go, let it go, till the whole thing collapsed. These are ways to look at collective collapses on something, right? How the collective collapses on it. And then we take those and look at our kind of micro life, you know, our universe, and look how our timelines collapse and how long we let them go on, and how at the end, if we've held on to them, how rough it is at the end for us. You know, we get to those endings. And you can see that all throughout in different timelines when you look at it. But it's a great video for that. But there was a part of the video, or the show this week, where one of the characters said he dreamed of the future. And the character that spends all the time traveling through the stones thought it was the most bizarre thing ever. And I usually watch a critique on Outlander. These people go on and they talk about it. And they too was like, oh, that's kind of interesting how, oh, you know, if we could all do that. And we do that every day. And that's the other type of time travel you will see depicted, even in movies. X-Men Days of Future Past did it. They did where the consciousness went forward. Now, in that video, the consciousness kind of inhabited the body for a second. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, of the future person's body, and was going through and doing what his mission was in that timeline. So you see it like that. You also see how the multiverse shows it, right? Where, you know, there's not just one timeline. There's a zillion different timelines. You go back here, you mess with that, and now your past is different and everything's different, but that timeline still exists. So you get a lot of different versions of it in a lot of different movies, how it's depicted, right? It's never as linear and as straightforward as Back to the Future tries to make it. In a sense, from a human perspective, it's always going to be that easy because we always see in that linear path. We are not capable of seeing the multidimensionality of what we do. And it always strikes me as funny, even, you know, even within the show Outlander, the person that's traveling through stones thinks it's so crazy that someone could dream about the future. And it's kind of a parody on society, right? I mean, we'll watch all these multiverse movies and be so into the stories of them And, Everything Everywhere All at Once was a massive success as far as everyone really getting really involved in multiverse stories and how fun they all are. And everyone in Hollywood's doing multiverse stories, from Marvel to DCU. Spider-Verse does it. Everyone does it, right? But when it comes to us thinking it's real, we are like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. This is just all make-believe. It's not make-believe. It's just we don't have the capability with our human brain. When we try to noodle it with our human brain, we don't have the capability to see it. We don't have the capability to understand it. That comes with the ascension process as far as expanding, cranial expansion in a sense, where we're all of a sudden able to tap into different things. There's so many scenes in movies you'll see, and this is really not supposed to be an Outlander topic, but today it really kind of is, because it's kind of what spurred this. There's also a scene in that where the little kid is talking to the infant and saying, oh no, she knows everything that's going on, and everyone's like, that's crazy. But we do it all the time. It's just reading the field. Infants, animals, anything that doesn't have the capability to communicate how our human brain wants to hear communication, we feel like they don't communicate. Plants are the same way. If we walk by a house plant and we all of a sudden think we got to water the house plant, we just think, oh, I just thought of that. We're reading the field. We're reading that plant is saying, hey, we're sensing the dryness in the plant. We're sensing the plant wants to be watered. We walk by an animal, a cat or a dog, and all of a sudden think of a toy they like, or think of something. That's them telling us that. I'll always tell the story about someone who would give me gifts and say they were always from the cat, right? And it's like, the cat wanted you to have this. And some people would think that that's just, it's just a funny little gag. But who's to say the cat doesn't plant that consciousness there when that person walks by? That, yeah, I kind of want mom to have that. Mom would really like that. Why don't you get that for her? Same thing with babies. I always tell a story about my neighbor's baby, who anytime it would be fussy, she'd call me over there to say, what's wrong with him? Why is he crying? I can't get him to stop crying. Because we're just reading the field. Everything communicates. But because it's not a tangible communication, it gets dismissed. Because someone dreaming the future feels so not tangible than someone actually going to the future, right? Everyone would accept the Back to the Future thing where someone went into the future over someone saying they dreamed about it and this is everything they saw. I mean, that's how we come up with everything that's been discovered in the last, hundreds of years. It's because people dream about these things. People tap into the consciousness of something else. I really don't want to say of something else, of somewhere else, a different part of them in time. It's still them, because we can only tap into ourselves, right? We're just tapping into a different part of us, different aspects of us. Everyone in our life is a different aspect of us. We always have the capability to tap into everything, to see how everyone's doing, if that's what we want to do. And when we're completely open and we're in tune with our field, we can sense all that. It's very easy. It's very organic. What gets in our way is all the human stuff, the human DNA we have. It blocks that communication. It almost runs interference. So until we start clearing a lot of our emotions, clearing a lot of our human programming, and when I say clearing our human programming, we're talking about clearing our beliefs about what we've been conditioned to believe, not just in this existence, in every existence. I'll always say, anytime you're dreaming something that's happening. We might want to say, okay, it's the future because of something we saw, or it's the past because of someone we saw that's not here anymore. It's just a different timeline. It's that simple. It's just a different timeline. And it might feel foreign because it might not be a timeline that we have the awareness of, that we're consciously living that. I think I explained it before. It's like you're like looking at pictures that are out of order in a picture album. You're looking at, it's like watching someone else's family vacation and it's all out of order. It's like jumbled up. It doesn't follow that linear pattern, but you know what's going on there. Deja vu is a great example of how people will all of a sudden go, I remember this. I can feel that. I think a lot of us being able to go into the different timelines, see a lot of our different timelines, it kind of has gotten a very human connotation. The same thing with channeling, where you're tapping into something that we shouldn't be tapping into. And that's our human conditioning, because the more we tap into this stuff, the more we open ourselves up. The more we open ourselves up to or our our organic state to see and feel all these things. The more we open ourselves up to all the possibilities, all the infinite timelines we can enjoy. If we keep ourselves very what's the word? We keep ourselves very compressed in what we believe is possible. But like I said, we can believe the most outlandish stuff, but when it comes to the more energetic stuff, the more subtler stuff, that's where we're like, hey, whoa, wait a minute. Are you telling me, are you telling me that this is possible? Are you telling me that you can? Everyone's going to dream. What I'm going to say is the future, because the soul has nothing to do with the past. Dreams are activities of the soul. It is not a human activity. It is the exploration of the soul. It's the exploration of different aspects of our soul, different parts of us separated across time and space, in a sense. I'm going to use the word time there in a sense of the reason we will dream what we're going to see as a future is because our frequency of our body is not where the frequency of that dimension is. That space where that frequency is, we're not there. If we were there, we would be living that timeline. Because we're not there and we're not living that timeline, technically it's because our vibration's not there. Our body vibration has to be the frequency of that timeline. We can hit it with our consciousness, but we can't hit it with the body yet. That's why it's not here. And how long it takes to get here depends on, how expansive we can get in our dream state. I've said I can see a couple years ahead. I've been able to see a couple years ahead for a while now. Years now I've been able to see a couple of years ahead, and sometimes I can even feel longer than that. I wore this particular dress today to do this video because I bought this dress many years ago, and I felt like it's never had its time. It's a very summery dress. It's a very specific kind of looking dress. Every summer I'll pull it out for one thing or the other, just to wear it once, because it was a very expensive dress I bought at the time in New York. I think I bought it in Soho years ago, and it was something I'm like, oh, I'll wear that. And then it's one of those things that's so particular. It's like, no, I don't know when I'm going to wear that. And because my life's had so many different shifts and changes because of my ascension process, which really started quite right after that, right after I purchased this dress, I went through a different type of my awakening and then right into my ascension. So even though I had sort of beginning of my awakening, my awakening went over that whole year. It was kind of like had 3 different experiences that kind of pushed me right, kind of from awakening into ascension. Because we do talk, it's two separate parts of the process, our awakening and our ascension. And I just never feel like it has time yet. So I'm like, I know it has a specific reason, something I am going to eventually wear it to that's going to feel like that's what it was there for. Just hasn't happened yet. So it gets worn once a year and it gets put back in the closet, cleaned and put back in the closet. So when we look at what we feel is possible and why we feel like something, because it's more practical, it's more tangible for us, and our human brain's always going to feel like something's more tangible is what's more real. And we can't really get bamboozled like that really anymore. We have to look at what's not tangible. That's what's more real. Just because it might feel off compared to how our human has been designed to believe, it doesn't mean we're just not open to the magic of it all. And we're so busy. It's also your brainwave state's different. When we're walking around our human programming, we're in a very beta brainwave state. It's a very busy brainwave state. We're not in the quieter alpha states. We're not in the delta states. Even people will talk about the gamma states. We're not in those brainwave states. When we get into those theta brainwave state when we're sleeping, we get into delta when we've been in the human sense, when we've been put under anesthesia. Those are the times when you get in. That's what babies are born into. They're born in that delta state. So they're able to have more of that connection and feel more and know more and communicate. We might not pick up on it because we're so busy with something else. That's why when we try to do our exercises that we've talked about, dream sharing or sending someone a human telepathy, we're just reading the field really. When you're trying to send someone a message to see, I wonder if they'll get it. Don't worry about the time it takes them to get it, because everyone's going to be, if they're distracted by anything, if their brain is in a more hyperactive state, they might not get it till they're sleeping. They might not feel that until they're sleeping, when their brain has time to get into a different brainwave state. Ascension really is moving your body into, moving your mind into a brainwave state different all the time. You don't get into beta brainwave state, and when you do, you're really into a human program, because when you're thinking about it all the time, okay, now I'm really into a beta state at this point. Like, I'm so in my head. You hear a lot of people who do this type of work say, I'm just in my head about it. My head's involved in it. And it's not about what our head thinks. It's not about what our brain thinks. It's about our higher mind consciousness. I did a video last week where I mentioned at the end how I feel like our forehead gets bigger, because we do go through changes in the body, cranial expansions, different things start to happen. I don't talk too much about a lot of that stuff. I know a lot of different people who do the similar type of work go really in depth into the body changes that occur when you start embodying in more aspects of yourself, embodying in the light of your soul. Your soul just has a lot of different aspects. So when we talk about a lot of these topics and we really go through what we feel is real. And look what we discount as real right off the bat. It's always funny to me that no matter how outlandish something is, when someone says something that's more energetic, everyone completely wants to dismiss it. Like I said, I saw it on the show today. I thought it was just hysterical. When you literally had the most outlandish stuff happening, but wait, this is the thing that everyone's got to suspend belief over, right? This is the thing just in the universe of that show that people have to go, whoa, that's crazy. How did that even happen? But it really parodies what we do all the time. We do it all the time. Ask to be revealed, ask for the big reveal, ask to see what's going on around you, ask to be in tune, and ask what's in the way of you being in tune. What do you not believe is possible? What's in our way that's keeping our minds busy about something else, where we can't tune in? There was a video I did about transmitting and receiving, and talking about, we're getting downloads all the time, but we might not receive them. We're transmitting all the time, but we don't know what we're transmitting. Some people would say you can't receive and transmit consciously at the same time. I tend to believe there are parts that when you can, I think you do get to a part where you can. When I do live streams and even videos now to a point, I get a lot of comments about, my eyes dart. I don't look at the camera all the time. Because I'm reading the field, and that's just what I'm doing unconsciously. My eyes are going all over the place. I've been on camera long enough to not want to look at the camera, but it's just, that's where the information is. My field is all around me. I got to talk about that. And that's where it all is. So I go all the way around. Sometimes my camera will cut out because of the software I use when I do my live streams, and I have to really make sure I can hone in on the camera, because when it does cut out, I'm a lot worse. I'm a little more conscious of it when I can see myself, so I try to bring my eyes back some, because I feel like it does put the human aspect more at ease when you're looking at them. But it's just more for the camera. Doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. It's more you're just looking. So look when you start doing that. You start looking around at everything else. You start hearing someone say something, but you don't feel like that's what they mean. You're reading something else. You're picking up on something else. We've talked about tilting our head. We start to tilt our head when we talk to somebody. I used to do it all the time when I would do more in person, readings and talking to people, where I really don't do that type of stuff anymore. But in the beginning I did, like 10 years ago, when I was doing more energetic readings, I'd always tilt my head. And I was like, what the hell? Why do I do that? I'm being precocious. I'm tilting my head all the time. But I'm trying to hit a different frequency. I'm trying to get a different frequency than what's going on in the room. So my whole body's trying to do that. Look when you're doing that, when you're talking to someone, and all of a sudden your head starts tilting because you're picking up on something else. What they're saying with their words is not the frequency of what they're giving off. They're giving off something totally different. So all of a sudden you start moving your head around. You start tilting your head around to see, I'm picking up on something else. It might not be a conscious thing you're picking up on. And I want to hit on dreaming one more time before I go. When we are dreaming, okay, the reason we don't remember, some people ask us, why don't I remember it? Is because you're hitting such a higher frequency when you're sleeping, because your consciousness is not bound by the vibration of the body, that it can go and play, and because it's such a drastic frequency from where your body's setting, As soon as you get back in that, you get back and the consciousness is back in the body in an extent, you're going to lose it, because it technically hasn't happened yet. You're technically not vibrationally there. So that's why people say you got to write immediately, because as soon as your frequency drops, you're going to lose it. You're going to not remember it. And that's why a lot of people don't believe they dream the future, because it can be such a latency effect on what they can see. Everyone that I've seen that's gone through any type of a human traumatic event had a warning in their dream state first that it was coming. You know, they knew it was coming. They knew something was coming. You know, they almost knew it because they could feel the timeline. A lot of people will say, well, why do I pick that timeline? You know, why would I pick something traumatic? Traumatic for the human doesn't mean traumatic for the soul. What's traumatic for the human is expansion of the soul. It clears out more human programming, the crying, the screaming, the anger, the grief. All that stuff is locked in our body that blocks us from all of our innate gifts. So that stuff has to clear. That's why all these things have to happen. We just eventually get to a point where we understand that. We understand that we might need certain things to trigger us outside. We also start to understand when we have a block ourselves. I think I did a video last week about a big epiphany I had about the way I was treating a person, because I was so blinded by a program I had going on there that I didn't even know I was doing it. And if I knew, I didn't care. And then once we see it, we have to go, okay, now I need to shift that. Now I need to feel what I'm doing. I need to understand what I'm doing, because I don't need an experience to show me that anymore. You know, now let me deal with it on my own, because I know it's there. I can feel that restriction in the body. I can feel my heart racing when I'm in this situation. You know, I can feel that I'm not okay here. And when I say I'm not okay here, I'm not at peace here. I don't feel at peace here. I don't feel like I'm okay here. No, I feel like I'm somewhere else here. You know, if it takes you out of your peace, it's not aligned. And if we remember, that is sort of our line in the sand, in the sense, if it's taking me out of my peace, it's not aligned. And then the question is, okay, how did I let it get so misaligned? And you know, it's funny, I realized I came on here to do a completely different video than the one I just did. I was actually going to save this one for the stream I was about to do and do a different one. But I guess this is the one that needed to be out in this content on a video, and the stream will be the other one. So anyway, that's how that goes. And that's how you just flow with it and you don't really worry about it. So, okay, I think that's it for me. I can't think of anything else I want to bring in here. I think we've covered it. So just, you know, be open, ask, feel when you're not at peace. And sometimes it's fun to just play. In the beginning, you're going to find you're going to get very large strides in the beginning because it's playful. It's kind of fun. And you're going to, as soon as you say, hey, I'm open to this, wait and see what happens. You know, as soon as I say, hey, I'm open to seeing what I can't see, you'll start to see a lot more. And then after a while, we feel like, holy crap. You know, now I feel like it takes so long, because then we're trying to actually build the timelines out. And that does take more, you know, linear time in a sense, to build the timelines out than just seeing them and feeling them and going by an animal and understanding something they're trying to say, or, you know, going by. And even if you don't understand, if you can't consciously get it yet, you can also just say for a sign, you know, hey, when you're ready for this, especially animals that are kind of near the end. I get this quite a bit from people who are like, how do I know? You know, how do I know when it's the end? You know, ask them, say, hey, when you're ready, you just do this and I'll know. If you can't consciously get it yet energetically, and unconsciously you're going to be reading it, but sometimes there's a lot of blocks. There's a lot, especially when we talk about letting go of something like that through death, through that transition, there's going to be a lot of cords of attachment we have to get through. That's why when I said before, a lot of times we know these things are coming before they come. It's the kindest way that we can start detaching from these things in our sleep state. We start detaching from all these things that we have so many cords around. It's kind of like the pre-op to all these things going down, in a sense. We start detaching from them. And it's kind of giving us that head start. So when it does start to play out, we're not as engrossed in it. We have at least had the awareness that it's a possibility. This person might leave. This person is going to go soon. And you just can kind of feel that. And then we have to look at what's our role in it and what can I do to support what's highest aligned here. Most of the time, what our human wants is not what's highest aligned. And it takes a while for us to kind of get to that where we understand that. Like, I want what's highest aligned, even if it's not what my human would like. Sometimes I'll find myself saying that now. It's like, it's not my choice. You know, if I had my choice, it wouldn't play out that way. But if that's what's highest aligned, then I will support that, because that's more important. The journey of the soul is much more important than the human aspect feelings. It's just doesn't really matter in a sense. There's something else that matters more, and that's to make sure everyone that we come in contact with, we show them the highest of us. And if we can't in that moment, then we don't show up, because our presence is what opens them up. You know, the more open we become, all of a sudden we open up somebody else. That's how the collective shift over time. And like I said, I use the word time a lot in this video, and this is a lot longer than my videos normally run, but it feels like it's important. You know, we shift a lot, and we leave collectives behind because we disengage from the collective. If enough people disengage from the collective will fall. And that's what we've witnessed all throughout. You know, even if we look back, and like I said, we're playing on a lot of time this, but it's just more for the example of it, the concept of it, than it is to actually believe in the time of it. We can see how collectives have shifted and changed because people stop believing it. You know, people all of a sudden said that doesn't make any sense to me anymore. I don't believe that. That feels like not just to me. That feels like that's not correct to me. Where the human gets tripped up, our human aspect then wants to judge everything. You know, you've seen that playing out in the media lately, you know, about a lot of things that have happened. And now, no matter how everyone tried to portray itself, now we always have to have, the human aspect's always got to have someone right, someone wrong, someone covered something up. It's also the clearing of that betrayal energy going on. It's the clearing of, you know, being in an illusion. You know, it's just, what illusion do you want to believe? What is it's all an illusion. Even the higher realities are illusion. They're just a prettier one. So it's more of a Disney version of an illusion than you know, a hardcore HBO version of an illusion. So it's what you choose to believe and the experience you choose to have. But when you're in the beginning and we have all that human programming, we don't really have a choice. You know, we don't have free will in that choice because we don't understand what we're doing and what we're creating. So we don't really have it. It doesn't exist when we're operating from our human aspect, from our ego aspect. We don't realize that. People think the ego is just, you know, if you really feel, people always paint the ego as being a narcissistic view. You know, like I'm very narcissistic about this, or I'm very this or that. I feel like I'm so important, and that makes you have a big ego. Every human trait is your ego. It's not just that one. That's part of it. Some people might not have that much of a part of it. Some people might have a different take on their ego. Not wanting to let something go, that's your ego. You know, not living in a human mentality, that's still your ego. Believing in the human illusion, that's still living in your ego. It doesn't have to be puffing yourself up. That's the human version of the ego, to try to throw us off track on what the ego really is, which is everything that makes up your human existence is your human ego. You know, everything we believe. Everything we've been conditioned to believe. That's all our human stuff. Not thinking a lot of ourselves. That's as much ego as thinking too much of ourselves. It's the same thing. It's all our conditioning that makes up our ego. It's the smallest aspect of us. It is the dimmest we can be, in a sense. It is the one that can see the less. It can see nothing, really. It is totally blinded by everything. And it's very self-centered. And a lot of people will say, well, I'm not self-centered. But look at why you do it. Look at the agenda you do something with. And if you do it for, you know, to be loved and not because of love, that's going to tell you which side you're on. Because a lot of stuff we'll do because of love is not going to get us loved. And a lot of times that's a good way to kind of check ourselves to see. You know, am I doing it because I want to be loved? Is that my agenda here? Or am I doing it because it is just because I love this person, and it doesn't matter what happens next, and I'm not doing it for anything but just because of that. And we really have to start making that distinction between the two. And you'll find when you're in your human ego, there's always that agenda of being loved. I'm doing this because it's for the best for this person, because down the road they're going to see that, or down the road that you really have to be able to separate those out and get a clear picture of everything we've done on one side or the other side. So, okay, that's very long-winded, but it is how it goes here. So, okay, keep practicing the art of intuition.